Love the music here. My reading today comes from a writer who has her own Substack. I'm still getting used to that name. It's basically a podcast, or it can be a newsletter. It's a Substack. Her name is Satya Doyle Byock, and she wrote this on January 26th, 2025, so almost a year ago, and that date's important. It's called Archetypes of Resistance and What is Your Role? Now, it's a long reading, and it's a little participatory, because when I get through the introduction, you're going to want to have the insert that's in the order of service. So did anybody not get one? Because I'm assuming you all want one. If you didn't get one, please raise your hand and we'll get you one real quick, because you're going to need it. Okay. How about you, sir? You want one over there? You're listed on there. We're good. I'm fine. That was just for a prop to let you know. Okay, so here's the reading. There is no way to capture how awful the last week has been for democracy, humanity, and very basic human decency. I'm worried about literally millions of immigrants, millions of federal employees, women in the military, Anthony Fauci, and gosh, all of us. This is a long-haul battle we're in. It will ask each of us to mature in ways I don't think we can yet imagine. We will each be called to rise to the challenge of finding that intersection between self and society that best reflects who we are. My goal is to stay out of fear, stay present with my loved ones and in my work, and also contribute to protecting our country and its people, lawful citizens or not. In trying to make sense of my best role, I've been pondering something I'm calling the archetypes of resistance. What are the ancient roles that go into enduring work of transformation, peace, equality, and freedom? No one role is better or more important than the others. Each person has a part to play in the larger work. But by seeing these archetypes individually, we might get a better sense of how our skills and personalities can best contribute to the whole. Rather than disassociating in overwhelm or diving in over our heads, these archetypes offer a way to explore how we can individually get to work. So, if you'd refer to it, I've taken the liberty of taking what she wrote and alphabetize it. So when you want to come back to one of them, you can find it more easily. But other than that, it's pretty much what she wrote. And I'm going to read it through so you can just hear it. The purpose of this is to start looking at which ones speak to you. There's 20 of them, I'll warn you. There's 20 of them. And none of us are one role. If you are, you're very unique. Most of us play many roles. So try to look at this and pick out the ones that you think you do often, and it depends on the circumstances, okay? So we'll get started. The first one, artist. The artist helps us to see things we can't otherwise see and face things we can't otherwise face. Helps to metabolize the pain in the world and turn it into beauty, or use art to protest in ways that marching alone can't do. A benefactor. All movements require money and reliable financial support. Sometimes that money comes in the form of crowdfunding, and sometimes it comes from very wealthy donors aligned with the cause. A civil servant. Speaking truth to power and working hard to defend our institutions, even in the most dire of circumstances. Protect what laws and services they can. They also offer hopeful reminders of leadership and courage. Code maker. When communication becomes dangerous and public information networks can't be trusted, resistance movements need people who can communicate without the risk of being heard. I know you've probably heard of stories of people that spoke unique languages in World War II, and that was used. One of the examples she cites is in this modern 21st century, somebody who can create a communication device that can't be hacked. Think about that. A cook. Without physical and spiritual nourishment, we all wither. Defender. Maybe a soldier or an officer protecting our institutions and communities in some of the scariest moments, possibly putting their life on the line. A healer protects us in body and spirit, bringing their skills and training to help ease suffering and ensure survival. A keeper of law. People who protect the law in times of resistance exist at every level of the system. A leader. A true leader is not invested in leadership for the sake of fame or prestige. They take on the role because they're able to orient towards integrity and morality in the scariest of times and model it for us. A musician helps us process emotions and celebrate, or lifts the spirits of a neighborhood amid devastation when all else seems to be lost, or creates a rallying cry to motivate change. A neighbor, often an underappreciated hero, but one who is remembered deeply in the hearts of the people they touch. Observer, brings to bear their capacity for presence by witnessing what is unfolding and then recording it for the rest of us. An orator, these are the famous ones. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, provides clarity for the mission and encouragement in the labor. An organizer, skilled at knowing what needs to get done, is tapped into the networks of care and support and helps us get educated and well organized. The prophet, always watching out for the rest of us and protecting things for the future, gathers information from what is right in front of all of us, putting the pieces together that the rest of us can't quite see. A seed keeper, maybe saving actual seeds for future harvest, or they may be acting like seeds themselves, going deep underground or away from society to protect knowledge, artifacts, or life for another time. The soul tender. Every movement needs places for soul tending, gathering spaces that help to replenish the sense of depletion and hopelessness, with leaders to remind us of our integrity and the larger story of creation and destruction unfolding over time. An underground guide. This one protects vulnerable people, creatures, and resources from dangers without ever being known or seen. It means taking risks and knowing how to play one role above ground and another at night or in the shadows. A wisdom keeper protects our books, languages, and cultural treasures for the future, as well as for needed inspiration, information, and orientation in the movement. And finally, a writer shares the news as clearly and factually as possible, provides inspiration to keep the people's souls afloat, and distributes needed intelligence. So those are her 20 archetypes. They're all over the place. They're quite varied. If you're like me, the first time I read them, I was a little overwhelmed. That's one reason I had to put them at least in alphabetical order to try to help me make sense of it. So I really want you to try to, it's just not a frivolous exercise. This is about practicing resistance. This exercise, this is one of the spiritual exercises in the Soul Matters packet this month. And I thought we could all do it together and you could think about it collectively and probably share with each other. So let's use a few more examples. And I kind of sorted it out a little bit to help you think about this a different way. When I was beginning to start on this, I thought, well, I have to go to the expert in the congregation, which is Ellen. Ellen Plaplowski, I sent her some questions. Specifically, these are them. What motivates you? How did you get originally involved? And do you believe there's a spiritual component to leading justice work? And Ellen sent me back this really long, beautiful email, thank you, Ellen, that really got into a lot of the answers to the questions with a lot of detail. And so I just want to share a few things. She said she seems to have an innate interest and ability to care for others. So clearly that healer instinct is just natural in the archetypes that she's chosen. And she was 40 years as a case manager and a social worker. So clearly, even though I think even when you were younger it started, but it turned into a career and a profession. And then when her parents were both ill, she said she essentially became their case manager at various points in their lives, which a lot of us are called to do from time to time. She's on Sophia's board of directors and has been for 7 to 8 years and involved with social justice for over 15 years. And so there's a lot that went into it, and the spiritual component I found was very interesting. And I'm going to quote you, Ellen, it's very nice. She says, "Yes, I think there is a spiritual component to justice work. It's that unseen energy that moves me to ask, how can I help? I don't usually even do so on a conscious level most times. I just kind of jump in and do it. It's like when I heard someone reference joy as resistance to some of the current administration's ugly policies. I think that's such a beautiful, positive reframe to the nastiness and divisiveness present in the world." She also goes on to say that, what's your motivation? And 2 of them she named very clearly was fear and anger. She said, fear for people who don't look like me. What if they get stopped at a traffic violation and their children come home to an empty house? We've heard examples of that. And anger that people are homeless, hungry, and now many will again be without health care. Anger over the ignorance that climate change doesn't exist, that people who care for our children and elders cannot afford to feed themselves. So to summarize what Ellen sent me, I think it's this spirit of love just moves Ellen to try and build a new way, like our hymn was just referring to. She admits that it's easy to be consumed by fear and anger. I think that's justified. But she makes a choice to be involved with joy, a very spiritually healthy path. So we didn't talk about this, but the roles that I thought just leapt off the page were healer, leader, and organizer. And I think they're the classic ones for people who do what you do. And so for me, that's the kind of people that I've always run into at Unitarian Universalist congregations, very involved in the community, and personally kind of intimidating for me because it just seems like, wow, you're so good at that. And so I, from the very beginning, kind of saw that, I have a different role somewhere in here that I needed to think on a little bit more. Well, as I said, our January's theme is practicing resistance. So just a brief, what's the theological backing for that as Unitarian Universalists? So Universalists, and you heard me say something about this in our Christmas Eve service, even though that was coming from the Transylvanian Unitarians, but it's the same message. The Universalists believe that Jesus came to save the world, not save individual people, but save the world by showing us how to live a love-centered life. Jesus showed anger too. There's stories about it, but always focused towards greater love for the world. There was always a reason he became angry, to try to move towards greater love. The Universalists believed that our calling, we're people of this earth, not the next, of this world, not the next world. So that our calling is to help create heaven on earth and save all of humanity. The Unitarians comes more out of a humanist, rationalist thinking and belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, which then, of course, leads to a good paradise on this earth. So Unitarian Universalists are called to practice resistance to the evil forces in the world. And I think we do this all the time in two ways. Justice work is resistance to the systemic oppression. And that's the stuff that it's the long slog kind of stuff. And sometimes you don't have many wins, and it takes a long time, even across generations, to have anything move forward. And then there's charity work, which you can frame it as its resistance to the perpetual harm that systemic oppression does. So if you're doing things like collecting food or collecting anything for people that can't afford it themselves, there's something wrong with our system that they can't afford it in the first place. So we're called to do this kind of work, but we're not all Ellen. Or in my case, I'm not Reverend David either. He was very involved in Sophia and a lot of the social justice stuff. So we realize that everyone has a role to play in the resistance. And so how do we fit in? How do we best engage? So I'm curious, how many of you found yourself on that list somewhere? Any? Okay. Maybe there's some stuff that's missing. Maybe there's some archetypes that are missing for you. I mean, I didn't go and think about what's the obvious things that are missing. Maybe there are archetypes you're drawn to, but perhaps you're a little scared or insecure to consider those. And so the whole idea then is really what's holding you back. So I'm going to do one more quick exercise to get you to think of them in a different way. And so I'm going to need the next slides. Thank you. So what I did is cluster them even bigger, because to me 20 was too many. I can't think of all that, right? So I made 4. So these are role categories that I think are kind of obvious. So the first one is vision and meaning makers. Basically, their function is naming what's wrong and what could be possible. The energy that they emit is this insight, imagination, a narrative power, and they're usually called the visionaries or the cultural weavers. So these are the roles that are under that area. So if vision and meaning making is really kind of your thing or you're interested in it, these are the roles I would suggest you look at. Artist, healer, leader, musician, observer, orator, prophet, soul tender, and writer. There's a lot of them there because it's all over the place, especially the artists, creative types. Okay, the next one is builders and sustainers. Their function is just making change durable over the long haul. The energy there is structure, care, continuity. They're the caretakers and the infrastructure builders. I'm kind of using the same words again. But the roles would be benefactors. Someone has to help pay for it. The civil servant, keep it running. The cook, we always need to be nourished. The neighbor, and in the author's description, she goes, this is the neighbor that comes out the front door and offers you a cup of coffee, right? It's that kind of a neighbor. The keeper of law, the leader, the organizer, and the soul tender. The next category is disruptors and catalysts. These are the ones you see on the news that are making a lot of noise and trying to get the press to get our attention to what's going on. So their function is to interrupt harmful systems. They have the courage to do confrontation and with a sense of urgency. They're fire starters, they're edge walkers. People like artists, civil servants, code makers, defender, the keeper of law, leader, musician, orator, underground guide, and writer. And the last one, I call them the reflectors and integrators. They're making meaning of this whole experience. They're very aware, have just this innate sense of wisdom and synthesis of what they're taking in. I guess you could describe them as the witnesses, the alchemists. The author uses the word alchemist a lot. This is artists again, civil servants, musician, observer, seed keeper, soul tender, wisdom keeper, and writer. So if you notice, a lot of them are in all 3, at least 3 if not all 4. So it depends on, if you're like a skilled writer, you could probably use it in each of these different areas. So as I said earlier, Ellen and I are different. She has the skills and aptitude for healing, leadership, and organization. I think I find my roles are orator, musician, and above all, probably soul tender and healer. And I'm honest about this. As the last, since 2016, when the world seemed to be turned upside down, there's a lot of other ministers that are those courageous people that are throwing their bodies in front of tanks and things like that. I'm like, that's not me. And but I do have a role, and I've realized that it's to do what I'm doing right now, to help all of you think about how you can be engaged in all of this work in a way that you're comfortable, in the amount of time that you have available, without thinking that it's a one-size-fits-all. It's like my 2 socks. You can wear 2 different kinds of socks if you want. So I'm here to help you resist in your roles. I'm here to help recharge your batteries of energy and passion for this work. Because it's hard work, it's demanding work, and ultimately it is spiritual work, spirit-saving work. I think it is, I agree with the author, it's an antidote to being overwhelmed by fear and anger. And it's an important way to live our life filled with as much love and joy as we can. So may we discover our roles this month and have the courage to lean into them a little bit more. And I would invite you, I didn't even ask Ellen if I could do this, but I'd invite you to talk to Ellen if you have a role. She can probably find a place for it to fit in somewhere. The world needs us, and we definitely need to practice resistance. Amen.